Hello everybody, welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be all about what we are doing to upgrade our corn planter this year. Now I don't know if you've been following the last couple years, but we have put a lot of money into this planter, hoping for better yields and better standability, better emergence, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go over everything we are putting on right now this year. Starting with chains, if you remember last year we replaced every individual chain for each row unit. This year I'm doing every wheel drive chain, which are 4. I'm doing all the seed population chains in these, so I got this one off and then this one. There's 2 of each of those, and I'm leaving the fertilizer system alone, and then that's all for chains. The next thing we are doing is replacing our closing wheel units with these heavy cast units. Now the reason for that is to be able to get more downforce on the closing wheels, because this year we are trying a new thing that we haven't done in a long time, and that is no-tilling corn, and all our beans are going to be no-till, except for one field because that is beans on beans. The other thing we are doing, if you notice here, standing between these 2 rows, there's a difference. That one has smooth closing wheels. That one has the Yetter poly twisted closing wheels. We are putting these on the rest of the planter. Right now the planter is split in half. We're putting those on the rest of the planter. Now these things, a lot of you guys out there will say these are not worth. You guys will question these. These are expensive closing wheels. I will say the same thing. They are expensive. They are about 200 bucks. You're going to see the biggest difference in your seed closing trench, especially if you're running these rubber smooth ones. It took everything I had to get Dad to buy half the planter's worth of these things. We started planting the first field of corn, went around the headland once, and he came up to me and said, "We're putting those on the rest of the planter." That's how big of a difference those closing wheels made. We didn't even have to see the emergence from them. Dad knew we were putting those on the rest of the planter because they were night and day difference between these rubber wheels. Now, if we were farming more acres and this planter was being used a lot more, we would probably switch those out for furrow force. I don't know if anybody's seen that out there. Those are 2-stage closing wheel system. But the biggest problem with those is I believe those are $800 to $1,000 a row, which we cannot afford. We just don't have enough ground. This planter does not do enough to really justify that cost. The next thing we are doing, which may seem counterintuitive to a lot of guys, but we are taking our no-till coulters off. The reason being is this is all we have for downforce, these factory springs. We have 3 settings, or yeah, 4 settings. We have off, which is the way it is now. There's no pressure whatsoever. You have a light setting, a medium setting, and a heavy setting. Chances are this is going to be in heavy all the time. I ran this in heavy all the time last year, and we were running in tilled ground. That is never going to move, chances are, but we take pressure off when it's in the barn. The reason why we're taking the no-till coulters off, we thought about switching them out for a bubble coulter just to reduce the amount of downforce that's required on the row unit. But what we have decided after looking in no-till and cover crop groups on Facebook and places like that, it's better to just take them off because it will really save on the amount of downforce needed to keep the row unit in the ground. And then, as well as, since we're no-tilling beans, it will keep corn stubble from hairpinning into the seed trench. Now, the other thing we are also doing is taking all of our drag chains off. These things, we always ran them with the rubber closing wheels just because they did such a terrible job. Dad felt like he needed them on there to do a fairly decent job closing the trench. But with these spiked wheels, there is really no need for these chains, and if anything, they are more of a nuisance. I know every couple rounds, these things would bounce up and get hooked on a closing wheel, and you'd end up like this, and then you would just be dragging a bunch of dirt, and yeah, it's not good. Now the reason why all the seed boxes are off, all our meters are out getting spun and checked. I did hear from them today. Those are done. We'll be going and getting them later this week. The next thing we're doing, also because we are no-till and because this row marker's bearing's out, we are replacing both of these marker blades with notched blades. And then I have to fix that up there. I don't know if you can see it. It's been kind of spread. Kind of hooked a tree with it last year and really did a number on it. That side, I did the same thing on at one point, but I got it fairly straightened out, and then I also gusseted it on both sides. So I'll do that on that side, but the planter does have to be pulled out of the barn for that. Dad wants to replace all the rubber hoses and the squeeze pumps. We'll see if that happens or not. That is all of the major upgrades the corn planter is going to be going through. Again, the Yetter poly twisters, no reason not to have them on your planter. You can also go with the Copperhead Cruisers, I believe, is the really close to that. Only difference is the spikes aren't twisted like on the Yetters. That's a really good closing wheel as well, as from what I heard. They might be a little bit cheaper too. But after this is all on, that is all we are doing this year to it. Next year, hopefully some more upgrades. Maybe put a new fertilizer system on, stuff like that. We're looking at maybe running 28 through this next year. But I think with that, the only other thing we changed on the planter is we put an ag leader system on, and that was very easy to do. I did that in probably 2 hours. It's just a module up there at the end of that black pipe, and then I actually just took the harness off right here. The end of the harness is right here right now. We had a 6-foot extension and it just wasn't long enough. We're swapping that out for a 12 when we go get our meters, and then that will be completely ready to go. With that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hope it gave you some ideas on your own planters or some feedback, and hope you guys enjoyed. Can't wait for planting season. Like always, planting season is one of my favorite times of the year, and can't wait to get this thing out in the ground. Hopefully the end of next month. We really want to push our soybeans this year. If we can plant the second to last week of April, that would be awesome. But we'll see how that goes. But for sure, beans are going in before corn, because we see a higher yield increase with earlier planted soybeans over earlier planted corn.